Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Section 31. In this video, I will review the first Star Trek Long Trek, as they're calling it. It's a movie straight to Paramount Plus of Star Trek movie straight to Paramount Plus called Section 31. So if you have not seen this movie, I will give you a spoiler warning now. If you don't want this movie spoiled for you, then you don't want to watch this video. But I wouldn't worry too much about it because you're not really missing much. So I'm going to start out by saying that I really wanted to like this movie. I came in, even when the trailers came out and everyone's pulling their hair out and it looks terrible, and it did in fact look terrible, but trailers can be misleading, even trailers that look bad. Sometimes it can look something terrible, but it's just the marketing team that cuts the trailers just aren't very smart and don't market it the quite way. This happened a couple times. I can't think of off the top of my head any specific examples, but I do remember this happening a couple of times. So I was like, no, let's, I was trying really hard. Let's not prejudge it. It's maybe it actually will turn out to be great. And I was really hoping that it would. And, it brings me no pleasure to say that this movie was garbage. Yeah, because it wasn't just that I really wanted it to be good. It's also that I can see, snippets of what they were going for. I could see, there's some, elements in this movie that really work, and I can kind of see what they were trying to do or where they're trying to go with it. So it's certain things like Picard Season 2 that make me angry and want to throw stuff around and rant because I'm so pissed off about how terrible it is. And there's other things that I just laugh at because, oh my god, this is such a giant piece of crap. Well, it's weird because I feel the different emotions and watching something that's not good. And the emotion that this movie brings out to me is just sadness. I don't hardly even want to talk about it because I don't want to dogpile on top of this movie I'm sure, because everyone who's reviewing it is, unless they're bought out by Paramount or just plain old silly. There's always someone out there that likes a piece of crap. No matter what it is, there's Sub Rosa defenders, there's the Way to Eden defenders. There's always going to be defenders in anything that's crap. But, so of course they'll be out there for this one, but the vast majority of people will just say the objective truth that this movie is just simply not good. So, and I hate the dog pile on that, but it just makes me sad that this movie's bad, because I wanted it to be good so much, and I could see what they're going for, and I could see elements it could have been good. I will say that this could have been a great movie. Now, the first thing I'll say about this movie that is, I think, the inescapable conclusion is that you can tell this was written as a TV show. And if they actually did a whole season of this story, I could see it being good. I could see them fleshing out the backstory, Giorgio's backstory that was the basis of the movie. I could see them fleshing out each of the individual characters and you getting to know them more. That being said, just because it is stretched out to the season doesn't automatically mean it would be good, because you have Picard Season 1, which did a terrible job, or Picard overall, did a terrible job of introducing the new characters and never really got them to stick or got you to care about them. But what I'm saying is, if it was done correctly, if they did a really good TV show, like a Strange New Worlds kind of feel to it, where is a bit more character based and a bit more slow paced, I could actually see this story being really good. And we know that Michelle Yeoh is amazing, Oscar winner actress, so this absolutely is not her fault. In fact, I feel kind of bad for her because the writers and producers really let her down, because she really wanted, like, it was her idea apparently to do the Section 31 movie. She's like, I really want to do it because I like the character of Giorgio and I just don't want to abandon it. So she wanted to do it, and I feel like they rushed it. A lot of people are saying they rushed it because they want to, sort of tap into that, Oscar winner thing before it kind of dies down and people forget about it. And I'm sure Michelle Yeoh has a busy schedule as well, which is why they couldn't do it as a series anymore. But they still wanted to do it as a movie. And here's the thing, like, I see nothing wrong with them taking their idea for a show and cutting it down to a movie, but the problem is that they did not do a good job at doing that, and it's obvious, it's beyond obvious that this was meant to be a show. It's kind of like, I didn't see Moana 2, but I heard a lot of like reviews and the pitch meeting and stuff talking about Moana 2 and about how that's originally supposed to be a series on Disney Plus, but then they changed their minds and made it a movie to be released in theaters. But you can tell, like, you go to see it and you're like, this is very obviously meant to be a show originally. And that's the exact same thing I get with this one, because they introduce all these characters, and this is that character, and he's like a little microscope thing inside a robot body, and here's this other character who's attached to his armor, and he's like a big tough guy, and here's this other character who's a shapeshifter, and they tell you all these details about them, but they barely appear in the movie. Like that armor guy, like, he was effectively a background character, so we didn't need to spend all this time introducing him because he never really became a thing. And they're like, oh, this Kamaloid, can change his shape, yet they hardly ever utilize that. So what's the point of even introducing that as an element? And then you had the Delton that was like, oh yeah, I remember those from the motion picture, and she died right away, and it was obvious that she was going to because she wasn't in any of the trailers. It was just plus the way they were treating her is like, oh yeah, they just have to have a throwaway character who's meant to die immediately. So, so yeah, it's So yeah, the thing I will say is that it's hard to put into words, but there's certain movies that you watch and you can tell that it's just a bad movie. It's just a terrible movie. It's just not like, I'm not even talking about subjectively bad, because there's some movies I think sucks that other people love, and there's some movies other people love that I think sucks. That's more of a subjective opinion. I'm talking about sort of poorly constructed, like, objectively speaking, and like a lot of people can, like, you can tell, like, the movie I'm thinking of off the top of my head is League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, where, and there's other movies too like that I was like, I want to like it, but it's just the way it's constructed is so terrible. You can't really follow the plot, and the dialogue doesn't make any sense. And usually, if you action movies like this one, it's the sound design is off, and it's like the visual, like the battle sequences just feel very disorientating, and you don't really know what's going on. And that combined with the bad plotting and bad characters just makes it kind of chaotic, that even if you like parts of it and like the story, it's just impossible to actually like the film overall because it's just so objectively poorly constructed. And that's the case here with this film. It's just, and that's what I'm saying, like, that anyone looking at it objectively is going to say, yeah, that this is bad. And as I said, there are elements in it that are really good, like Michelle Yeoh, and then there's the guy who is the leader. I didn't remember any of their names, so don't. And I'm sure no one else would remember their names either, so no point in trying to look it up. But anyway, the dude who was the leader, who they were getting into his backstory about, he was in the eugenics war and he hibernated with Khan and whatnot, and that he was brought in by this other warlord who killed his family, but then became one of them or whatever. Like, that's the kind of backstory that makes it freaking obvious that this was meant to be a show. Because in a show you can flesh out something like that, whereas in a movie like this, it feels like they're just throwing exposition at you for no good goddamn reason. But anyway, he was a good character. He was a good actor. I thought that actor was really good, did a really good job. Like, I wanted to see more of that character. I actually liked Rachel Garrett. I think she did a good job. I liked her actor. Now, granted, they did give her some stupid lines, but they did that to everyone because they were trying to do, like, the Marvel type banter, but absolutely failing at it, and so it just comes off as just cringy. But I liked her. Like, if they were announced, like, they're gonna do another show with Rachel Garrett and as the lead, and they have the same actress come back and play her, but the show itself is like, has the same sort of slow paced, character based tone that Strange New Worlds does, and then like it's more like Strange New Worlds, which is to say more like classic track, and has like the more slower character base that Strange New Worlds, TNG, and DS9 have, then I would be totally on board with that. I would be 100% like, yeah, like let's explore Rachel Garrett and let's have this. The actress is a good actress. I like her portrayal overall. She was giving some cringy dialogue from the writers, but that's not her fault. Like, I would be totally on board with that. And if they brought back that same guy who was the leader of this group, like, yeah, he's really good too. And I didn't really have an issue with any of the actors. It was mainly the production side, almost even more so than the writing. Like, the writing was just bad because they were trying to condense too much. But yeah, the production side was really bothering me. I don't think it was my TV, because I watch other stuff on that TV and I have no issue. But the sound design was like so off, and like, I had a hard time finding like the way that all the action scenes were constructed and the music and everything. It just felt like it wasn't very well put together, and it was hard. It was just confusing and like overwhelming the senses. That's also, I mentioned League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I have that same experience with that movie, and a little bit with Star Trek 2009 as well, which is why I call that CGI diarrhea. But more so in like other bad movies that I can't even remember because I put them out of my mind, like Fan Four Stick or something like that that are just like so terrible that the whole production, and it's just like a jumbled mess and you can't really follow anything. Like, I thought the story was actually, interesting, and as I said, like, this could have been done well if it was done over the course of a season. But like trying to shove it in, it's like you can see what they're trying to do, but it's just all thrown at you so fast that you don't care about anything. You don't care about any of the specific characters just because they throw exposition at you. And the whole thing was Giorgio and her backstory of the Sam or whoever that guy was. Um, I figured out that was him, like the very first time they introduced the villain. as soon as they had that villain fighting Giorgio in the club, I'm like, hey, that's gonna be that guy that we saw at the start of the movie. And sure enough, it was. And I was so goddamn predictable. And again, like, I had no attachment to him. Like, they, throw this backstory. Oh, apparently there was this Hunger Game type thing contest to see who would be the emperor, which I think is kind of dumb. But and the reason why I think it's dumb because it's not explored. They just throw it at you, and oh yeah, we'll show some images of these two people like cuddling and holding hands, and that's supposed to mean there was this whole backstory of them being in it, and the Hunger Games or whatever, like Katniss and what's his name, whatever the dude's name is. I don't know. I don't like those movies, but kind of like they're sort of forming a bond in order to win, but then the other one betrays one at the end. It's kind of fucking predictable. But we're not shown any of this. We're just told this very fast and exposition, a few images, and so I had no attachment to him. Could not give a fuck about him. I could not give a fuck about Giorgio's attachment to him. They were trying to play it off at the end with the sad music and oh no, don't die, I don't want to kill you, but I have zero attachment to this. And then by the end of the movie, she's back to her cheery, self, who's just throwing out quibs or whatever, and all laughing about it, and and they even set up for another story that surprised me. For some reason, I don't know why, but I was expecting a more definitive ending. I wasn't expecting, because I thought it was very clear that they were just going to do this one movie, but at the end they're like, oh, this is another adventure that we're going to go on, and they mentioned a planet, and I was like, I don't recognize that planet, but I'm almost certain that it's a reference to something. So I watched another video, and they said it was the colony that Tasha Yar grew up on. What? It didn't really make clear when this was set in. I mean, there's a young Rachel Garrett, so it has to be after the TOS movies. So how did Giorgio get there because they didn't really explain. They just said in the prologue thing, which was very terrible, by the way, that she disappeared after, Discovery era. We know why that is, because she went to the 32nd century. But then they had an image of her going through the Guardian Forever, but it didn't show where she returned, where she popped up. We have no idea. So I guess we're meant to assume that it was way after, the TOS, sometime in between the TOS movies and TNG, because otherwise, she would be really old if she came back right to the same time that she left, before, TOS even started. So you assume that they went back to what they're calling the Lost Era, which, I would love for them to explore this era more. But yeah, not like this, in a good way, with a good show. And so, but they're not clear on that, and they're not clear on how she got a club and became rich or whatever. And here's the thing, the stuff they do with the club and the music and the tone that's supposed to be very sort of modern. They use a lot of modern music and a lot of sort of the tone of being very quick and quibbing and sort of feeling more like an action movie in modern times than Star Trek. I don't have an issue with that in general. That just by itself is not a problem, but you do need to do it in the way that makes sense. Like I heard other people complaining, like, "Oh, this isn't Star Trek because it's they're doing the club and dancing and action and whatnot, and it doesn't feel like Star Trek." I'd be fine with that stuff being in Star Trek, but you have to do it correctly. You got to do it in a way that makes sense. And this is like not the first time modern track is fucked up with stuff like that. When they tried to do shit like this in Picard and in the City Lights or whatever the hell that episode was in season 1, and then Discovery, like that casino where there was wrestling and bullshit. Like they get the tone wrong. Like you can do this modern club or dancing and shit like that, or the quibbing and the fighting action thing. You can do that. But you need to do it in a way that works. Like, for example, in Picard season 1, the first episode, when they had those Romulans beam in and attack Kadal, like that worked. Like that made sense. Like that felt natural. Whereas this is just the sound design was off, and I can't hear what they're saying, and they're talking very fast, and stuff is happening very fast, and the way it's shot is very confusing, and I hate to blame the director, but this is the same director, and this is why I was worried as soon as I heard that he was directing this movie. It's the same guy who is a prominent director in Discovery, and he directed a lot of episodes of Discovery, and those are the episodes that do the spinny camera thing where the camera is constantly moving around the characters for no good goddamn reason, and it can't fucking stay still, and they're doing a shaky cam, and it's just his directing style is just bad, in my opinion. It's just confusing. Like, you need the directors from Strange New Worlds or someone like Jonathan fucking Frakes or something like that who know to keep the goddamn camera still. Like, you don't need to. It's just. And this is the J.J. Abrams. It's still having a negative cascade effect on the Star Trek era. We need to move past the era of J.J. Abrams, because people are like, oh, those Star Trek movies are so good because the camera kept moving around and it was kinetic. But no, that's actually doesn't make a good story. It just makes it confusing, and we need to move fucking beyond that. Now, granted, I didn't think they did the spinny camera that much in this movie, but it was still the whole style of, especially the action sequences, where like was way too confusing and generic, and it's just you couldn't follow and couldn't keep track of the geography. I just don't like this director. I'm sorry. Like, and the whole style. Like, again, you can have like modern music and clubs and shit like that. That's fine, but the production style needs to be more smooth in the way like like Strange New Worlds. I keep coming back to that because they keep the fucking camera still, and it's more of it's more the slow paced talking. And Strange New Worlds feels a lot modern too. They have a lot of quibs and joking around, and some people have an issue with that. I do not. I don't care, because it's good storytelling, great characters, still camera that's not constantly fucking moving everywhere. So that's fine. You can have action, you can have modern stuff, but you gotta do it in a way that's not fucking confusing and not just going all over the fucking place. So that, combined with the script, which was just needed a lot more work. Like, so getting back to the thing I was saying before, that's very obvious as this is meant to be a TV show, is like they needed to just kill their babies. That's the expression. If you never heard that as a writing expression, I mentioned this before. It means you might have written something that like, oh, this is so great, and oh, the whole concept, and I thought about it a lot, and I came up with this really great character as an example, and I was like, oh, it's such a cool character. But if that character actually doesn't contribute anything to the story, in fact actively interferes with the story, you got to get rid of it, even though you think it's totally awesome. So you have to kill your baby, in a sense. You kill your baby's stuff that you might love, but if it's not helping your story, in fact if it's hindering your story, then you need to get rid of it. And that's what they should have done with all these back characters. Like they say, oh, here's our team, and this person's that, and this person will explore this, and it's too much. Like, for example, that dude with the suit or whatever, like, he died on like halfway through the movie. Like, you didn't need to spend so much time introducing him and being like, oh, and having to trying to make it so he was like a main character, or you could have just had it just be a random guy and be like, oh, this is random guy. And other examples, like, there are rare occasions, like I was thinking of the Suicide Squad movie that manages to throw in these characters and make you feel like they're main characters and then kill them off immediately. But that's hard to do, and I didn't like that, but other people did. So it did work, but it's hard to pull that off, and these people are obviously incapable of doing that, so they shouldn't even try. I think it's a kill your baby situation. You might come up with all these cool characters for a TV show, but when you realize it's going to have to be condensed to a movie, you need to just fucking get rid of them, or just make them side characters and stop trying to focus on everyone, because what effectively happens, you're trying to focus on too much, then you don't have time to develop any of it, and so the audience has no connection to any of these characters. And I really felt like they were trying really hard to be like, this is our team of ragtag whatever, blah blah blah, but it was more of a show not tell situation. I was like feeling that that's what they were wanting me to feel and what they wanted me to get out of it, but I didn't. Like, it was just a bunch of random characters I didn't care about. Like when their lives were being threatened, or when the one dude in the Vulcan robot suit, when he like was found out to be the traitor, I felt nothing. Like, I didn't care. I'm like, oh no, it's that guy. He's the traitor. The guy I don't give a fuck about. And I didn't really like the acting. It was very, like, the way they portrayed him was like very confusing. And yeah, it's just, and there were good ideas. As I said, like, I did really like the leader guy. And I thought he could have been a really interesting character in a show that had more time to flesh out his character. And I heard some kind of rumor that this movie was going to explain why Section 31 is kind of a more clandestine organization that's behind the scenes, that's not official, that nobody actually really heard of, because in modern track they're treating them like they're just the CIA, like a normal branch of the Federation that everyone heard of, whereas the whole point in Deep Space Nine is that they're not official and no one has heard of them. And so I heard a rumor that this movie was going to explain why that happened, say, oh, they became a more clandestine organization by the time we get to Deep Space Nine time, so it's only in the TOS era, which still defies what they're saying, because they said they were always a clandestine organization. In fact, we see that in Enterprise, but at least that would have made it make more sense and fit more into Deep Space Nine. But no, they didn't fucking do that. And the more I think about it, it's like, this isn't really Section 31. Like, they should have just came up with another name for it. Like, this didn't feel like a intelligence gathering organization, or a what Section 31 was, and more of a black ops kind of undercover whatever, meant to sort of manipulate politics and policy of the Federation. This is seen more like mercenaries. Let's see more like a group of mercenaries, or like a Black Ops commando group, not like a group of CIA agents, but like a Navy SEALs type thing or something, or as I said, like, yeah, mercenaries for hire or something. Like, that's what it felt more like. So I don't think they even should have called it Section 31, and I don't really think this bears any resemblance to Section 31 whatsoever. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. So yeah, and they have to have this device that's capable of destroying the entire Alpha Quadrant, because, I mean, it happens all the fucking time in modern Trek. You just kind of sick of it and over it. No, the mirror universe is going to invade our universe. Like, really? We need to do that now, I guess. And when is it that the Terran Empire is going to fall? When is the Alliance going to take over? I guess maybe that doesn't happen until later. Sometime before Deep Space Nine starts. So maybe it hasn't happened yet. But they did kind of hint at it, to be fair, by saying, oh, the resources are running thin. But it was supposed to be Spock, actually. They didn't mention Spock. He was supposed to take over in the mirror universe and change the Empire. But so if we're in like the Lost era, that's, they said it was in the 2320s, and TNG takes place in 2360s, so that's only like 40 years before TNG. So it seems like that Terran Empire should have fell by now, but maybe it takes a bit longer, or maybe this is a different. No, it can't be a different version, because this is the version Georgiou is from. I don't know. It's just, and all the Easter eggs they have, like the dude that's black on one side and white on the other side, like, they're supposed to be wiped out, but it makes sense. They could have some refugees lying around, but this just seemed like, oh, let's throw in all these Star Trek references to be cool. And the whole thing about like Comaloids from Star Trek 6 or whatever, but Deep Space Nine acts like changelings are the only shapeshifters that exist. I don't know, like, whatever. It's all fine, whatever, I guess. Like, all that stuff I don't mind if they handled it correctly. That's not my issue. My issue is just, yeah. Anyway, so my rating for Section 31, out of 10. Yeah, I'm going to have to give this a 2. Extremely poor. I'm sorry. Like, I just feel so bad because I really wanted this to be good. And I could see, like, it could have been really good. And so I won't give it a 1 because there are some, as I said, elements that could have worked, that do kind of work. Like, there's some characters that are good, like Rachel Garrett and that dude who's leading the group. Like, if they were given a show and given time to flesh these characters out, like, it could be great. But it's just, the whole thing is just a jumbled mess, and I feel really bad. I feel really bad for everyone involved in this, that all the work and hard work and effort that they put into it just didn't come to fruition, because I don't think they should give that director guy a fucking movie. I honestly, like, I don't know. Jonathan Frakes spoke very highly of him. I was like, oh wow, he's such a great director. But also, it's like you get the sense that these are some of the same creative minds behind Discovery. Like, they need, like, Discovery again is hit and miss, and fifth season is definitely way better than the earlier seasons, but this feels more like those really bad episodes from the earlier seasons that are just jumbled and try to, like, shake the camera and just try to do too much and try to be like, oh, look how cool we are, but not really pulling it off very well. So they just need to move beyond that and be more like Strange New Worlds. Not the musical episode, but in general, like the way it's filmed. But anyway, so yeah. So 2 out of 10. for me, unfortunately. I feel so bad. Anyway, that is it for my review of the Section 31 movie. Now, you still have time. God damn it, you still have time to put in your top 10 best episodes of Star Trek Next Generation, top 10 worst episodes of Star Trek Next Generation. Put them in a comment. This video, do it now. Or any of my other videos, doesn't matter. Any video on my channel. Just put in your top 10 best TNG episodes, top 10 worst TNG episodes, because I'm going to take them and contabulate them and combine them with everybody's list and come up with an ultimate list that me and my sister will be doing a live stream, and we'll announce the results of that, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So the more lists, the merrier. You have up until February 1st will be your deadlines. Just get them in by then. You still have time, as I said. So go ahead and do that. And check out my channel as I wrap up my coverage of TNG, continue my coverage of DS9, and in a couple months we'll start my coverage of Voyager, doing every goddamn episode, one episode at a time, with an episode review for every single freaking episode of the Star Trek franchise. So anyway, yeah, be sure to check out my channel, and if you really like this channel, you really liked what I do, you can support me on Patreon. Link in the description below for that. And yeah, also you can listen to me in audio podcast if you like, if you want to have it transportable while you're working out or whatever. It might be better, and there's a link to that as well. But yeah, be sure to check out my channel as I continue to cover Star Trek, and thanks a lot for watching.